Flanders Fields. We are dead. And I'm going to read it to you because I just think it's a very stirring thing. It has nothing to do with July. In fact, it happened in May, but it has to do with early British encounters over there. And it's a short poem, but it's really beautiful. The poppy has come to symbolize the memory of those lost in the Battle of the Somme, which ran from when July, as I said. The poem is this. In Flanders Fields, the poppies glow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard, amongst the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt gone, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you, from falling hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us, who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields. Pretty heavy. Okay, on July 10th, 1940, Richard Boyd probably remembers this. The Luftwaffe decided to conduct raids on the Channel shipping, English Channel shipping, and on the 12th they attacked Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. Thus became what Winston Churchill called the Battle of Britain. On July 16th, Adolf Hitler submitted to his military the directive for the invasion of the United Kingdom, Operation Sea Lion. He wanted to capture Great Britain before he went to Russia and took over Russia. The Battle of Britain lasted until 31 October 1940. The Royal Air Force Fighter Command thwarted the German Luftwaffe's attempts to gain air supremacy over southern England, averting this possible invasion. The efforts were not without significant sacrifice. 915 British craft were lost, and an estimated 544 of the 927 aircrew of the RAF were lost. 1,733 German planes were destroyed. Despite their numerical disadvantage, it prompted Prime Minister Winston Churchill to describe them as, quote, the few, in his speech on 20 August 1940 when he said, never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. The Messerschmitt Me-109 was the principal German fighter, but with a range of only about 435 miles. It had only 15 minutes fuel over Kent, England, and was at the limit of its range over London. Good thing. The RAF pilots, many of whom were from Australia, Canada, New Zealand, South Africa, and Central European countries, which had been overrun by the Germans, flew the better-equipped Hurricane and the faster, more maneuverable Spitfire. That was the Battle of Britain. The Blitz continued on after that until May of 1941. So the British took it on the chin, big time, starting July 1 in 1940. Okay, where were we? Some notes. Charlie Lloyd has got lots of things to say about our welcome guests.
Am I on? Yeah. Give me a call. But don't have to use my hands. Okay?
Talk to again.
Yeah, put my pocket. Welcome, everybody. Thrilled to see such a nice crowd as we hear David speak tonight. I'd like to take a moment to reflect on the last year or two. Our growth has been stupendous. It's really brought in a lot of people, and that's for the veterans. And there's a couple people sitting in the front row I'd like to introduce. Namely, Scott Stewart. You gotta stand up. He's the founder of Lehigh Valley Veterans. His partner, Steve Savage. And one of the speakers from last year, Major Klein, Navigator Bombardier B-26 Marauder. Shot down twice. But we owe these guys a big hand. We started almost 2 years ago sharing speakers, and it's made a world of difference. They've given us some excellent speakers, and we've shared some of our best with them. So collectively, we're doing the job we need to do, and that is to make everybody more aware of the veterans and what they've done and how they've served. We also also have a program we're putting in place now for postcards. For you people who receive postcards, we're going to, if I put my head down, you can hear it, right? I have a stiff neck, so we're going to a bulk mail permit in the next 2 months, and we're going to take our postage from there to there. You'll see some changes, and we're going to be able to expand on that and bring more to you. So anybody receiving postcards, just be aware we're going to have a change in the next 60 days or so, thanks to Bob. We also have, I want to take right on your comments about Joseph Burke. It did catch us off guard. We realized that we're not sophisticated enough to vet people that say they're from Auschwitz. I take it as an affront to all the people that perished in those concentration camps. Just murdered. So I reached out to the National Holocaust Museum, had a conversation with them, telling them that we don't want this to ever happen again. Very good conversation. She said, we have archives, we have research archives, which we will make available to select people. One of those people we have on the stage is Doug Serby. He's a professor of Holocaust Studies at Stockton University in New Jersey. And where's Neil? Neil's right here, Neil Eifert from Penn State Harrisburg campus. So thank both of you guys for helping us out on that. So going forward, we'll be tied into the National Holocaust Museum in D.C. and also Doug is tied into the one in New Jersey. So we think that's going to work out for us. Coming up, we have Sal Castro, who fought with the Army in the South Pacific, New Guinea, and 3 or 4 of the islands down there. He'll be here in August. September, we have Pete Pantacone. Pete was a radio man on the LC-1, Land and Craft Infantry, 492 on Normandy. So he's seen that and have a lot to tell us about that. October brings, we think, Neil or Ivan Macker, who was one of the 800 children that survived the Nazi regime because Sir Nicholas Winton smuggled them out of the Nazi territories prior to their talk to David about that. Probably the invasion of Poland, I guess. And then in November, we're going to have Herb Ridgard from Elizabethtown, the Philly speaking as well. So we have a full slate. We're looking forward to it. At this time, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce Doug again. Doug has done a wonderful job working with us, been able to put this whole thing together. And I've asked him if he would be kind enough to introduce David for us. Dave, Doug Sherman, please.
I'm Italian, so I should not hold this because I talk with my hands. I taught high school for 41 years ago at Chris High School. I'm now an adjunct professor at Stockton University, which had the first master's program in Holocaust Genocide Studies in the United States. And we offer more Holocaust studies, genocide studies, and Jewish studies than any university in the world, which is kind of shocking to us. It was shocking to us when we found that out actually just recently. That's even more than Israel has, believe it or not. In any event, I kind of got into this as a senior in college where I graduated from Pennsylvania Military College, which is now Wyden University. And I knew nothing about the Holocaust. I heard that word for the first time in a methods class. And as a result of that, the professor showed us a really gruesome film. And I go, what's this film about? And he goes, what are you majoring in? I said, a history teacher. And he goes, you don't know about this? And I said, well, I wouldn't have asked the question if I knew about it, so I'd like to know what it's about. So there was 25 kids in there, chemistry majors, physics, Spanish, whatever your situation was. And as a result of that, he goes, all right, wise guy, I'll ask the rest of the class. So he did. Out of the 25 students in there, one kid raised his hand. So I looked next to me and I go, Josh, who I play football with, I go, why do you know about this? He goes, well, I'm Jewish. I go, congratulations, I'm Roman Catholic. What does that have to do with anything? And he goes, are you brain dead? I go, no, I don't know about this. So I go, look, what are you doing for dinner tonight? I'll buy pizzas and beer if you tell me what the Holocaust was about. As a result of that, I went to teach high school that year because the Vietnam War ended, thank God, even though I was a commissioned officer. So I went and started teaching, took that to my high school. That lasted 3 days, which in turn lasted 4 or 5 weeks. And as a result of that, I ended up going over to Auschwitz with the New Jersey Holocaust Commission, because we were the first state to mandate Holocaust genocide education in the United States. And that's where I met David in Auschwitz, who actually walked up to the guard and said, "I'd like the keys, please, to get into Auschwitz because I want to bring a bus in because PBS was making a film on this." So they gave him the keys. He walks in, gets the keys. He goes, "Oh, the Nazis, if they could see me now." So as a result of that, he takes us into the sauna. He's going to tell you this in detail and so forth. What David usually does not do, and he didn't do with my students at my high school, the first year he came, wouldn't speak to my students. And I go, "David, I'd really like to have come in," because we had a lot of Holocaust survivors that had chicken farms and so forth in South Jersey. I said, because your story's a unique story, they all are unique. And I'd like you to come in and talk to my kids. And I said, "Look, let's do this. I'll do 25 students and I'll buy lunch." He goes, "What are you having for lunch?" He goes, "Look, I was in Auschwitz, I'll eat anything." So we talked to 25 students in the library. That went pretty well. The next year I said, "Look, you think you might want to come back?" He said, "Yes, I think I'll come back." Well, he came back, and a lot of kids found out he was in the building. I had to use other Holocaust survivors. So I said, "Well, we're going to be in the auditorium this year. I have a few other students that heard you speak last year, want to hear you again." And I said, "Well, how many kids are in there?" I go, 400. He goes, "I think I can do this." Well, he goes in, walks down and so forth. Before he gets to where the podium was, 400 high school kids, which a lot of people get down in our younger generation, gave him a standing ovation. That sent chills down my spine. I mean, that made my education career. And that was in 2005. So every year since then, I bought him lunch, and then he would come down. And as a result, those kids got to hear a speaker and then, as a result of that, they go, "Where's your book?" He goes, "I don't have a book." I go, "Dave, you need to write a book." He goes, "I don't write, I sing." I said, "Well, we'll get somebody to write your book then." So our school has a program called the Writers Project, where Dr. McLaughlin, who's in the book as well as the editor, she's done 63 of these. The problem was he lives in Levittown, Pennsylvania, and the concern was, not living in New Jersey, would that meet the criteria for the grant that they had? And she said, "Well, you teach here and you know him, so we'll do it." So that's how that book got written as a result of that. The details, if you want to know those, I'd be more than happy to sign those for you. At the end, if you just want to take a picture, I usually leave time when we do these to take pictures as well, especially with the high school kids, because they're on Snapchat and Twitter and Facebook. I said, "Look, you're a superstar, you don't even know it." Because even though he has an iPhone, he doesn't know how to work it, and neither do I, so that doesn't make a difference at that point. But he has an amazing, amazing story. If you have questions, he'll give you like an overview of what went on, and then if you have questions, please feel free. And usually the first one's the more difficult one, and then somebody else has a question they realize, because he will go into a little bit more detail. But if you want the gruesome details, because you've probably seen the film and so forth, either The Gray Zone, the new film that's out called Son of Saul, or any other PBS documentaries that have been done by Spielberg and so forth, Schindler's List, as well as possibly The Pianist. But those things all happened to him. And as we're driving here, the 2.5 hours to get here this evening, is that even both of us, he goes, "I can't even believe I kind of went through that." Like, it's almost beyond human comprehension. And having been back to Auschwitz twice and, Majdanek and several of the other camps, it's beyond comprehension the evil that we can do as humans. Conversely, we can do some amazing good things. And hopefully my dream eventually is that every student on this planet, no matter what country they're in, takes a Holocaust genocide class. Then maybe we can learn to live with each other and stop killing each other. That would be my dream. And that's one of the reasons that I continue to do this as a Roman Catholic, because a lot of people say to me, "I'll go to different places. What synagogue do you go to?" I go, "St. Nicholas Catholic Church." Which kind of cracks my mother up to a certain extent, since she was a Southern Baptist and my dad's full-blooded Italian. But she converted to Catholicism. They met at a USO dance, and that's a whole other story, but in any event. And without further ado, I am humbled every time I do this to introduce Cantor David Wisnia, Holocaust survivor of Auschwitz-Birkenau.
chciałbym to wszystko powiedzieć po polsku. Am I speaking the right language? The last time I've seen, I think I better sit down after a beautiful reception. I can't believe it, really. The last time I recall a place stopping for me, believe it or not, and you'll hear about it in more detail, was March 2nd, 1945, when I made my way from a train that was leading us, 100 of us or close to it, to Austria to build bunkers for the Nazi planes. Remember the date? March 2nd, 1945. The war was still on. It was not over until May 7th, at least for us officially, once I managed to escape from that trip and made my way to the 101st Airborne, who became my family and still are. And they introduced me, I get the honor of singing the national anthem at our conventions, and am still introduced as Little Davy. It's the greatest honor that can ever be bestowed on me. And this happens usually at the snowbird reunions in Florida. I think the best way for me to give you a little bit of a picture of how I got to this particular point would be using excerpts of my speech I delivered when I attended the first reunion of the 101st in Florida, in Central Florida, about 25 years ago. And I find it's about the best way to describe my story. You see, most people, this is what I said then, and I will say it now. Most people live their lives and the memories of their life in chronological order. But my life is much different than most people here in the United States. And therefore, I have lived two different lives. One before World War II, and the other after World War II. And I called it Two Lives. That's what my book is called. One Voice, Two Lives. The Holocaust and the life I experienced during the 6 years of World War II, I keep in a guarded place in my mind. That's what I said, by the way. I'm quoting my speech 25 or 30 years ago. So, for many years, people would ask me how old I was. And I would always tell them 6 years less than my age, simply because I didn't count the years of World War II. Recently, my granddaughter, who wrote a college essay about her grandfather, I had no idea the impact that I have had on her, as she knows some of my story. Now all my children, grandchildren, will know the entire story, as you will hear it, and I will try to sort of shorten it. It's quite difficult to tell a story such as mine in an allotted period of 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour. How does one take a number of years and push it into a few well-chosen words? The most important thing is everything was normal with me. I was born to a normal family. I shouldn't say normal because Poland, for any of you who know, did not have a middle class. You were either rich or poor. And poor, I mean poor. People barely eking out a living. Now, especially among the Jewish population of Poland, which was quite sizable, it was 10% of the country, which was about 3 million, a little over 3 million, of 31 million Polish citizens. My family, I was blessed, as I said, being a part of that middle-class family. My father was a carpenter and had a shop in Warsaw, big city, close to 1 million population, where he does quite well, or he did quite well. Everything was fine until 1939, my 13th birthday, and I was relating it to my friend Charlie here before. It was a Thursday night birthday party for my 13th birthday in a most beautiful home that we had, an apartment, of course, in Warsaw, the great city of Warsaw. Looking out the window early in the morning on Friday, that's the reason I'm mentioning it to you. Early on Friday morning, I had a stomachache from the party and the candy stuff we had. We lived on the 4th floor on Promanna Street in Warsaw, a major business area, beautiful apartment. I hear a roar of flames. I look out the window and I see squadrons of airplanes. Way up, cloudless sky, Friday morning, September 1st, 1939. No bombs, no declaration of war, nothing. We heard that the situation was not normal, that Germany tried to annex the corridor, what they called Danzig, and that's all they wanted. But the planes flew over, attacked the airport outside of Warsaw, south of Warsaw, called Okęcie Airport. Now it's called the Chopin Airport. And in one fell swoop, we found out later, destroyed the whole Polish Air Force, which consisted of approximately 20 planes, you know, those biplanes. I don't mean the way the German planes looked. I tried to wake my dad up, and of course I'm not going to say it to you in Polish, our language was in Polish. I tried to wake him up and say, these are not our planes. He said, oh, go to sleep, they're maneuvers. I said, maneuvers? Daddy, I said, Poland doesn't have that many planes. 12 noon, Polish radio announces, Germany attacked Poland. You're all asked to go out and defend Warsaw. The mayor of Warsaw was Starzyński. I will never forget this, of course, as long as I live. I went with my dad and my older brother. My younger brother was too young. He was 2.5 years older than I. And we went to try to help overturn trolley cars so that the tanks could not get in from the west. Needless to tell you, Poland was occupied, as you well know from history, although we don't teach much history today anymore. Poland was occupied in 3 days, but Warsaw was not taken for another 27 days because we dumb Polacks tried to save, we tried to save Poland by overturning trolley cars. And when my dad took me in to watch the parade when the Nazi armies paraded in Warsaw on Marszałkowska Street, Marshall Street, Major Street in Warsaw, and I saw tanks or motorized artifacts being pulled, by guns and whatever else they had by motorized means, where we in Poland had cavalry. We had horses. I turned to my dad, that's the reason I'm telling you this, and I said, Dad, nobody's going to beat this army. I watched the parade. Well, anyway, everything was fine. Ghetto was formed in 1940. You see, it was a slow process. Everything was fine at first. The German Wehrmacht, the regular army, behaved quite properly. Ghetto was formed in 1940. I was still going to school, and I went to a private school where I had to learn every subject, believe it or not. If any of you are any children here, if you're complaining about, having to learn another language, let me tell you, I learned every single subject to start with in grade school in 2 languages. Polish, which was our main language, and Hebrew. Not Yiddish, Hebrew. Now, if you want to know a tough language, let me tell you, that's a tough language. I even learned arithmetic in Hebrew. Now, you try. There are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, the ancient Hebrew alphabet, 22 letters, where a aleph, in other words, a 1, or a bet, which is a 2, that's where you get the word ABCs. Got it? Anyway, where that was like multiply a sandwich by an onion. You're in good shape. It's quite a tough situation. As a result, and then, when I started gymnasium, we had 2 more languages. We had German, a little bit of English, and French. Not that I'm trying to tell you that I'm quite fluent in most of these languages. It was a funny situation because that came to haunt me later when I got into that 101st famous Airborne Division. The idea of going to school, which I was still going to school, as I said, in 1940, when the ghetto was formed in Warsaw, suddenly out of nowhere, up until June 7th, I think, or June 8th, when the Germans attacked Russia, and all hell broke loose. The ghetto was now patrolled by the SS. The Wehrmacht was no longer in charge, and my dad, being a carpenter, befriended one of the officers of the Luftwaffe out at that airport that I was talking about, and a truck, believe it or not, used to come in. I thought I said, I'm being important now. The last time I was so important, by the way, I didn't realize I was that important. I get a standing ovation before I even speak. The last time I remember that was when the whole column of tanks during the war, World War II, with buses, with artillery, with you name it. And that was the American Army stopped for me. And I'll get into that in one moment. That's the funny part. That's the part of my second life. The idea of living a normal life changed from that moment on, from 1941 on, once the Germany attacked Russia. One day, very difficult for me still after all these years to tell this, and you can understand. I was now 16, sort of 15 and a half, 16. Stopped going to school. My dad, by premonition, or call it whatever, decided to send me to that airport in place of himself. Cleaning or doing something for the airport. And also being able to go to pick up some additional, food to be able to bring back in to the tightened ghetto. When I came back that particular day, I couldn't get back into my building, to my section of where we lived. There was a massacre, and I became an orphan that particular day. Now you can imagine a 16-year-old kid, what do you do at that particular point? All I wanted to do is run because I understood that either my dad resisted, he was not a docile man, and he was quite a big shot, trying to defend the population of that particular area. I found a pile of corpses and recognized my mom. Not knowing where to go, I was born in a little suburb called Sokoche, which is about 25 kilometers from Warsaw. I ran with the help of a friend who used to work for my dad, who was a Christian Pole on the outside of the ghetto, who risked his life, led me across from Sokoche to, he knew that I had a cousin in the part. You see, Germany annexed a third of Poland, and they called it Germany. Russia, on the other side, if you know the map, annexed a third of Poland and moved it into Russia. That's all before the Germans attacked, the Soviet Union. Not having any papers. I know most of you don't know what I'm talking about when I say papers. It's ID cards in order to get rations for food. They had to report me to the police, local police, outside of that town, that little Sokoche. Destination, making it very, cut it short. Destination, Auschwitz. I arrived in Auschwitz with a transport of 1,500 people. This was the last transport from a suburb called Novitvor. At the train station, as I showed Professor Serby, there was a selection. This was way before, we're talking now 1942. This was way before Mengele. You know the name? Some of you must have heard about Dr. Mengele. This wasn't Mengele. This was a chartier called Enders, Johann Enders. I heard, understanding German, I heard him say, or one of the underlings said to him, or he said to them, Alle Überachsen, I don't know if you understand German, Alle Überachsen zum Lager. I didn't know what in the world that meant, but I realized what they're doing is taking, out of the 1,500 people, taking the young-looking men, or men who were strong enough looking, to the side and lining them up in fives in a long column. They took out which was a lot at that point, 580 young-looking men were selected to go into the camp. The rest, 900 and whatever, we didn't find out till the following day, asking some of the prisoners as we were being tattooed, where are the rest? Where are the women and children? They started to laugh at us. You see the smoke out there, the crematoriums weren't even finished. There was only one crematorium that was in the process of being finished, and that was crematorium number 2. If you know the history of the Holocaust, you had 2, 3, 4, and 5. There were 5 different crematoriums. Anyway, they told us, you see the smoke? Well, anyway, no point in going into the details. You've heard enough stories about the Holocaust, and this is one of the reasons why when I arrived at the United States, it wasn't popular to talk about Holocaust. And that's why I had my number removed, but you could still see the 6 stacked in my left forearm. Moral to the story. The first 2, it's all my first life. It stopped, of course, when I was elected. I shouldn't say it stopped then, but it stopped about 2.5 years later, really. Because being in Auschwitz-Birkenau, as I said, the logistics were, if you were surviving more than 2 or 3 months, it was a major miracle. That was longevity in Birkenau, okay, which was called Auschwitz too. I, on the other hand, survived Auschwitz-Birkenau for close to 3 years. How in the world does a kid like myself survive? My first job in Auschwitz was collecting bodies from the ditches that were surrounding the perimeter of the camp with a cave and the electrified barbed wire fence on the other side, if you can possibly picture it. And anyone who wanted to commit suicide, and there were many of the transport who did, because the transport came in the day after that from Germany. I have the book that tells me so. That is a book published by the German authorities that tells me all you had to do is put your foot over that tripwire and the guard would shoot you. My job for the first 2 and 3 weeks, maybe a little more, I don't remember exactly, anyway, was to collect the bodies. I was strong enough, put them in a wagon, bring them into the particular outside of the cell block where the electrified barbed wire fence was, closer to crematorium number 2. That was the one. And delivered the bodies to the crematorium. And I continued to do so for more time than I did. I wouldn't be standing here now. About the 3rd week, there was a cell block. There were about 400 or 500. The cell blocks are still there. I'm talking not the wooden ones, I'm talking about the brick ones. Cell block number 15, where I was for all this time. The cell block leader, by the way, when I came into Auschwitz, there were very, very few Jewish prisoners in Auschwitz. You know what Auschwitz was at the time? A gathering for the Polish intelligentsia, which meant all the educators, you know, priests, the Polish intelligentsia that tried to kill the whole Polish system. Most transports did not start coming in until 43, 44, And of course, 45 was the liberation. But I must tell you, my friend wrote a few words describing it, and that will give you an idea of what Auschwitz was. We were condemned, by the way, when I was selected, to live in a cesspool where evil reigned supreme. All religious, moral, cultural, social, judicial restraints on human behavior were totally ignored. Or better still, they were unlearned. The bonds that hold humans together into civilized entities were torn asunder and blatantly disregarded. When there are no legal and social sanctions against murder, life reverts to a jungle. And Birkenau, Auschwitz, was a jungle of such ferocity that jungles in the wild would be ashamed to be associated with it, if they could reason. The established system and prevailing mores of that jungle determined why a transport like mine of 1,500 people who arrived there were reduced to a mere, hold your breath, 6 over the time that I was there. Of these 6, I am one of several still. There are a couple of more I will be celebrating. I can tell you the truth now. My 90th birthday, next month, August, and I am one of, I think there are 3 of us left. One in Chicago and one in Los Angeles, who were of that same number of transport. It is an extremely difficult story to tell, as I said, and I think there must be, or there will be, some questions on your part. Please feel free to throw anything at me. I can take it, and I will be more than glad to elucidate or to do whatever, to clear up any doubts or any questions you might have. Now to my second part of my life, which is my favorite. December 1944, fast forward. I'm still in Auschwitz-Birkenau, of course, and we begin hearing, as a matter of fact, I had a plushy job, sorting. You see, I still have problems. As Doug knows, I can't save any money because, you see, I used to search the money because I worked in the Bekleidungskammer, which was named Canada. Most of it in that group was called Canada. And I once remembered, I had told them the story, I found, I don't know how many of you have seen a $1,000 bill. Can I see it show up in? You know this? Don't you? Well, I paid $3,000 bill. I had the distinction. I found $3,000 bills in a little diamond in 1944 in June to one of the assessmen for a bread and a salami from Hungary. And I still have a problem. I can't say, I love to live well, but I can't save any money. Money to me is, it's tough. I like what money buys, but certainly not worship. Anyway, we begin hearing artillery fire, December 1944. The crematoriums, for whatever reason, not to be known to us, stopped operating full scale. and we begin knowing that the Russian armies are closer. The front at night in particular, we hear the artillery barrage. One morning, we are selected for one of the death marches, and I'm sure you've heard those stories before. I was on a death march to Dachau in December, I think 23rd or 24th, to Dachau. When we arrived in Dachau, by the way, while moving by foot, over the regular Polish-German border, going towards Munich, where Dachau is, right around it, we are being strafed by planes, because the planes didn't know, of course, the pilots didn't know for sure. The Nazis used to attach themselves, with tanks, with wounded, with all kinds of buses, trucks, to our transports as we were marching. I guess figuring it out. And what we look up, we see planes. And what do the planes have markings? Red stars. Now, that played quite a trick on me, because in a couple of months later, I see other planes with white stars, but I didn't know what the story was. So let me tell you, that's my beautiful part, and I'll end with that and ask you to ask any questions. Dachau, arriving in Dachau, they gathered all the prisoners that were close to the front, the Russian front, and moved them into Germany to take them away from the liberation zone, so to speak. We arrived in Dachau, there's no place, there are thousands of people, prisoners from all over the place. No place to eat. No, just like Auschwitz was conducted in a deathly, orderly fashion. Everything was in order, You knew exactly what each person was doing. Dachau was the opposite. Chaos. No food. Nothing. No place to sleep. I hung around the Schreibstube, which is the main office, and I was in good physical shape at that particular carry a certain poundage of cement, to get out of Dachau. I volunteered together with a group of some other boys or young men, and we are now on a trip to Middeldorf, which is not too far from there, and going south towards Austria. We are now being strafed by other planes. And as I started telling you, to me a star was a star. Red star, green star, white star, who cares? As long as it wasn't a swastika or a black cross that we used to see or that you see in the movies. We're being strafed now by American planes, unbeknownst to us. I organized a group of a few other people. I was in good shape, and I volunteered, of course, and organized a group to escape. The details are in the book, really. I'm not going to go into it. And 8 of us or so made our way away from the train, and because they let us out of the cattle cars into the ditches as we were being strafed by, and there was an area. And that happened quite often as we were moving out of Dachau. They brought us back, and I realized get here, if you're going to get out of here, go by yourself. Don't organize a whole group because you're going to get shot, you're going to get killed. I made it the second time. I hear the whistle of the train and I was already far away. I'm not going to go into the details. Again, it's in the book. I'm pretty close and I will tell you. And tried to hide in barns. No compass. Don't know where I'm going. All I know is I'm in Germany. I suddenly hear one day by the barns I found during the day. I stayed in the barn and only walked towards the fire that I heard, towards the front, so to speak, where the front was coming. This time, of course, it was the west. I did not know that. So, about near Frankfurt or Merchingen, something like that, in Germany, in that particular area, I hear a roar of one beautiful morning. I hear a roar of moving tanks. And I could distinguish, of course, tanks. In the movies, you hear the German tanks went, boo, the American tanks went, yeah. That's not what it was. I hear tanks moving and moving. So I look down. I'm about to find a place to, as we call shaka for the, what do you call it, for the day. And I hear it's about 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And I hear the roar of tanks. Believe me, if I ever prayed, I prayed like you never saw anything like this. Dear God, please don't let there be a swastika or a black cross in any of these tanks. As they come closer, I see a white star on the lead tank. It's a beautiful part, the beginning of my second life. I see a white star in a whole column of about 15, 18 tanks, trucks, with, you can't imagine, a whole long thing. And with all my might, I start running down that little incline. There was only one guy, he just passed away, Fred Ballou, who was the most decorated guy of the H Company, 506 Partial Infantry Regiment, who remembered me, who was still a witness to me coming down from that incline there, down to the main road. I see a beautiful highway, and this you will love, because that was the beginning of my second life, as I said before. And if you think I was important to come and give me a standing ovation or come here to hear this, let me tell you how important I was. The whole war stopped for me. The whole column stopped. Now picture this. 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, you're just getting a little light. There's a kid, of course I was in civilian clothes, very little hair, just like now, but it was blonde. And I'm running with all my might. Did you ever see, any of you people see the picture of this guy on Tiananmen Square, remember, in front of the tanks? You remember? They're making a movie of this, by the way. Really. We finally got somebody to do this. That whole column stops, and here I am in front of that column. Out of the hatch climbs out Captain James L. Walker from South Carolina. Don't laugh. I couldn't understand a word. And I knew, when you learn a language, what do you learn? Face it. Dirty words. Face it, that's what you learn. Words. not sentences. And he says to me, I walk over to him and I point at him. I said, "You Russian?" You know, so the star, to me, a star was Russian. Who cared whether it was red or green or white? He said, no, American. I figured, I'm in trouble. Because we heard stories that right after the Battle of the Bulge, as the 101st came down, they had a lot of SS men disguised in American uniforms. You know, and it wasn't so nice what was going on there. I'm not going to go into that now. Anyway, as they, what do you call it? He says to me, "We got a man, come from your skate." All I got is the word skate, escape. And I got the gist of it. He says, "Take me, are they SS?" I said, "Yes." I knew. So he realized I escaped somewhere. So he wants me to take him back to where I escaped from. I had no intention of going back anywhere. But the point was, I couldn't understand. I couldn't talk to him. Yeah, that was Captain James L. Walker, H Company 506, Parachute Infantry. Okay? I decide, if he's American, he must have somebody who speaks Polish. Good deduction. Okay? So I said, any Polish? I mean, I knew words in English, not sentences. Anybody? He says, "Yeah, we got one." Yellowstone. And you have to picture this. A whole column of tanks, name goes in the morning. He yells down, Fred Wilczek, up here, back. Fred Wilczek is from Pawtucket, Rhode Island. And Fred comes driving in. You have to picture this. There's a whole column there early in the morning with the war stops. No more shooting, nothing is going on. And there's a Jeep coming alongside of the beautiful highway. It wasn't the Autobahn. Anyway, coming down with a Jeep, and Fred Wilczek is in that Jeep. Fred gets out of the Jeep and he comes over to me and he says, "T," he starts talking Polish. I hate to tell you, his Polish was worse than mine. Not only worse than mine. I can't speak. As a matter of fact, he became my adopting father, so to speak. I never left him for the whole war after that. He taught me how to use the machine gun, too. Anyway, I'm still not satisfied because I can't talk to him. And I had a crazy idea. I figured, okay, American. They must have somebody who speaks Yiddish. They got to have some Jews there. So I said, any Yiddish? He said, yeah, we got one. The other time, this is Fred. We're talking now about Captain Walker. Wait till you hear the crux at the end of this. It's unbelievable. The other, Harry Wiener, up here. And he comes up with Harry Wiener. Harry Wiener from Tarzana, California. I found that out, of course, later. Harry starts talking to me Yiddish. My Yiddish wasn't too good, but this was even worse. This Yiddish was worse than Fred's Polish. No discussion. It was absolutely impossible to get together. But they then made a mistake and wanted to get me into the Red Cross wagon in the back of the column, and I refused because I saw what the SS did with some of those Red Cross wagons. I don't get in. So picture this. March, beginning of March, Germany, I'm in an open Jeep with Fred Wilczek. Okay, Fred, we got that Fred because he spoke Polish a little better than the other guy spoke Yiddish. Okay, so I never left that outfit until I came to the United States. I became the formal, you see, not being born in the United States, I could not get all the benefits of the GI, but I've got, you'll see pictures here. Uniform, I became a part. I was the adopted formal interpreter of the 101st Airborne. And the greatest thrill to me, and let me tell you, I've learned one thing over these past years. You cannot appreciate this country unless you come from someplace else. I get sick to my stomach when I read some of the things that are going on. The United States is the culprit. They don't treat the people. They haven't got the slightest idea of what these people are talking about, for heaven's sake. Really. The 101st Airborne has become my family, and they know it. And I'm still being introduced in Tampa, Florida every year, singing the national anthem, you know, as little baby. But I would like very much, I know there's some veterans in here. How many of you know the salute of the 101st Airborne? Could you stand up for a moment? 101st Airborne has a special salute. Only one person? I don't believe it. Come on, there must be somebody else. Well, let's do it. Question.
Stay there. You got this one? Hold it up there. Hold it up. We have? Oh, I'm sorry. First of all, before we get to Q&A, before we get to the Q&A, we want to say thank you. Thank you. It's a wonderful account.
Thank you.
We don't have $1,000 bills to offer to you or small diamonds, but we have something that very few people get, and we'd like you to have one. Our special Central Pennsylvania World War II Round Table mug.
Thank you. Does it hold foot cut?
So now questions and answers. You want to read the question? Sure. Okay.
You know, feel free to ask any questions that you have. I mean, Dave will be more than happy to answer them. If you have one that he finds too difficult, he will tell you that.
Good evening, sir. First, you have my respect and admiration. The second, I just have two short questions. The first one, did you ever contemplate suicide as a very young man when you were going through your struggle? And two, you speak in Dutch. You speak in Dutch.
It's very Dutch. Sure, of course. German was a required language in our high school. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, to answer that particular question, I'm beginning to get a little woozy, but one of the songs that I used to sing for the crazy drunken parties that I was elected to do by the SS in the camp where they had on occasion, a drunken party. I was selected to play the piano and sing. And I brought it along with me. So I'm just going to give you the first verse and then give you the answer. There was a movie in 1940s that was quite popular in Germany. And the movie had the name of the song. You can Google it and you'll find it. And it's called Man musste Klavier spielen kennen. Okay? Sometimes. Johannes Hesters is the one who composed it. And I learned it, and they used to love it. And here's how it goes. I'll give you the first verse. Man muss ja Klavier spielen kennen. Wer Klavier spielt, hat Glück bei der Frau. Weil die die Musik machen können, schneller over der Daumen vertan. Der Klang des bespielten Klaviers wird auf jeder irgendwie sagt. Und die Geheimnisgefühle für den Piano doch forte geweckt. And it goes on and on, and this is strictly German, they loved it. And what it is all about is, you better learn to play the piano if you have luck, if you want to have luck with the girl. The second part of the question you had, did I have any thoughts of, suicide? Absolutely not. I think I attribute, in some measure, my reaction to what was going on. You have to remember that I came into Auschwitz with no family. Most other people came in with their families. They came in with their wives, with their parents, with their children. I was not. I was by myself, meaning my family was killed before that. Okay? Now, before I was tattooed, there was an assessment standing in front of me, and I attribute that fact really to my reaction generally, and to show you, I'm in a house of worship here, right? You'll be happy to hear. And it doesn't matter what, whether Protestant, Catholic, or Jewish, no matter what the religion is, I do want to mention it to you. The assessment who was standing in front of me as I was getting undressed, in the sauna where I worked later on, had a full, uniform in front of him, and he must have been about 6'6". And I was a kid, and my eyes were fixed into his belt buckle so you could see what I'm talking about. My eyes reached about the size of his midriff here, or I saw the belt buckle. And guess what it said on that belt buckle? Gott mit uns. God is with us. Now, being a student of Bible, as I was, and a student of real religion, I said, you'll pardon me for a prayer. That's not the God that I learned about. And it stood with me every time I had a tough minute. It looked, not that I'm square, I don't think that there was a person sitting up there, pushing buttons. That's not the kind of God I'm talking about. But I do know that we are not the end of it. There is something higher than us. Okay, better than us. And it doesn't matter, really. And that stuck with me. And at one of these sessions, about 2 years ago in Pennington, New Jersey, show you what a small world this is. A kid got up when I told that story, and he says, my grandfather just came over here, and he had one of those belt buckles. I didn't pursue it. So it just gives you an idea. And you know, the best part, 2 months ago, I am with Professor Serby in New Orleans, delivering the talk. You want to hear what a small world this is? And here's the witness right here. I'm being introduced, right before I'm being introduced, one fellow with his wife, an elderly gentleman, sitting next to me, and he turns to me, it was quiet for a moment, and he says, "How did you get to the 100th airborne?" I said, "Well, it's a long drawn-out story, but I'm going to tell you anyway." I said, quickly, before I'm being introduced to speak, let me tell you. I said, I am, and there were hundreds of people. I don't know how many people were there. 200. Okay. And he's opposite the table, and he sees what's going on. And I said to the guy, "Well, this column of tanks, as I started telling you, stops for me, and now it crawls out of the hatch. Captain James L. Walker from South Carolina." He turned, watch this. The fellow turns to me. This just happened a couple months ago in New Orleans. He turns to me and he says, "You see my name on the tag here? His name is Walker. Turns out he's a cousin. James L. Walker is a cousin of that man. If you don't think this coincidence, this just happened."
David, if I may call you David, because I'm almost as old as
Fine.
you are.
That's fine.
Did you ever read the book called A Holocaust Survivor by Severin Thayer? He was a Polish civilian, lived on the border near Germany and Poland, and his family went through very, very similar things that you had, but he was separated. Mainly the story that he wrote was a very short book, and you can find it on the internet if you're interested. I think you'll find a lot of similarities there, and maybe things that you would.
Was he an entertainer also? No.
What's that? No, he was captured by the Germans when the Germans invaded Poland, and he and his family were taken prisoner. But they managed to survive. All four of the family, which was his father, his uncle, and his mother and his father, they were all separated. But he went through a lot of experiences where he used his cunning, so to speak, to endear himself to some of the officers who were in charge in order to survive, to get extra food and all these things, and I'm sure you encountered.
Did he know any trade? Did he?
Oh, well, he's a very famous man, you'll know him.
You have a book?
I have
Thank you.
I
Thank
bought
you.
it like a couple weeks ago.
He died, I think, last year, if I'm not mistaken. I met him in Reading.
Right.
And he started and ran Baldwin Brass, which is worldwide known now. And he survived and managed to come over here when his family rejoined in Munich or somewhere near the Munich area. And he came back to the States and he started this company. And I was more impressed by the last two paragraphs that he had in that book, where he has nothing but praise for the United States for what it gave him, and the opportunities that they gave him, and how I break up the time to talk about it. And he did everything
You
for
can't appreciate, I'm telling you cannot appreciate this land.
Absolutely.
I married a Brooklyn girl, okay? And have been married to the same woman now for 67 years. She deserves the applause. But you know one good thing, I still have hope. That's her name, Hope. It's her name, Hope.
Turns out that my wife died just 3 months short of our 70th anniversary.
Good boy.
And I myself am 96 years old.
That's good. God bless.
Well, I mean, our outfit was there. I wasn't scheduled to fly that day, and this gentleman over here was shot down on that day trying to help you people out. So, and I think he has a question that he may want.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't have a question. I have some information that I'm not very proud of. As a bombardier navigator on B-26s, coincidentally, I was shot down twice in 1 week during the Battle of Auschwitz. When we didn't reach our target, or for various reasons, weather, whatever, we were stationed in England at that time. And what we did is we dropped our bombs in the channel because it was very dangerous to land with bombs on the plane. So we got the idea, how we, some of the officers and the group, got the idea, well, why can't we take these bombs and bomb the concentration camps, because we know where they are. A lot of people are going to be killed, but that'll end it, at least for that camp. So it went through all the various areas, and eventually into the State Department, and it got up to our President Roosevelt. And I hate to tell you what he said, that it's none of our business, so it never happened.
I could not hear very much.
I'll tell you.
I got a little bit of the information. Is there anything I could answer?
But you may want to go over the bombing of Auschwitz. Why we did or did not bomb Auschwitz.
Yeah, I remember one day, when the American planes, we knew it was American planes, flew over. Actually, they destroyed a place about 3 kilometers away from Birkenau. Blechhammer, that was the name. And the majority of the people who were in the camp went out praying and begging that they should they should destroy the crematoriums, which would have, and it was quite visible. Unfortunately, that wasn't to be. I remember that myself. You had to look and didn't get the orders to do. That's how it works. So. Any questions? There's one all the way
We'll
back.
get there. Go. We have one here.
Yes.
Two things. First off, my husband, Major Matthew Merzak, who just passed away this past year, was 101st Airborne. Was 101st Airborne. My husband was 101st Airborne.
Yes.
So that's all I wanted to say on that. But the question I had was, you didn't go into very much detail in what happened to your parents and what happened in Poland. Is that in your book?
Yes.
Yes.
There's a detail in the book.
Okay.
Like I said before, a lot of the gruesome details and stuff, you're better off reading about it than you are. It's very difficult for David to talk about.
It's not very, I don't like,
You don't have to. That's okay.
I understand.
it's a difficult thing to get into. You see, the end of the war was not pretty. War is not pretty at all. You might as well know that, I can tell you.
Sir, I have one question for you. Since you were essentially a displaced person after the war got over, how did you get to the United States? Did the 101st help you come here? And where did you wind up in? And getting a job and all the rest of this?
He came here illegally. He came back with the 101st Airborne.
I came in on a troop ship to Hoboken, New Jersey. And I had, the only relatives I had were my 2 sisters of my mom. One younger, one older. The younger one left Poland about a month before the war broke out. One of them lived in the Bronx, the other one lived in Brooklyn. And I screwed up the addresses, you can imagine. By the way, there are 2 songs that I composed while in Auschwitz. One of them is in Polish, and the other one is in what's like Yiddish Hebrew. If any of you attend the Holocaust Museum in Washington, if you ever go, get up to the 4th floor, that's where they have the archives, and look up or punch in music from Auschwitz, and you'll hear me singing. It's still there, and I have donated it to the museum.
David, a question. How was it in Auschwitz that your talent, your musical talent, was discovered? Did you volunteer that?
No, I thought I told that story. One night, after about coming home from pulling the bodies, in the evening as we got together in that cell block, which housed 450 people. Remember those bookshelves, if you've seen the pictures? Okay, I was in one of those. The cell block leader yelled out, I thought I told that story, yelled out, "Who can sing here?" You know, he wanted a little entertainment. So everybody knew Wisnia sing, so they pushed me down. And guess what? As a matter of fact, what was it, 2 months ago in Reading, the gals, what did they call them? The Sweethearts of America? Right. It was the funniest thing that happened to me. They came, surrounded me, I don't know who told them the story. They came over to me and they started to sing, "I'm here just to shame." You know, that was the song that was popular. And that was one of the songs that I sang for the SS. They loved it, they couldn't care less. So I became the formal entertainer at some of their parties. And I never anymore would continue dragging bodies. I got a cushy job in the sauna. That's how it happened. So singing again saved my life, and singing was my life. Please remember that when I grew up, I learned to sing. I knew, I don't know if you are, what do you call it, opera lovers, but I learned Luci van der Stella from Tosca when I was 9 years old. Right? And thank God my voice is still holding out. And I'm a baritone, not a tenor. Yes?
I, as a Roman Catholic, I'm wondering if you were aware of the incident of the Franciscan priest, Maximilian Kolbe.
Oh, yes.
Who substituted, asked to substitute for another man.
I know who he was, yes.
You knew of him?
Yes.
So you were aware in the camp of that situation?
Oh, yes, sure. Absolutely. Cell Block 11, I know where they killed him, sure.
I have a quick question over here. Did you have any interactions with the notorious Dr. Joseph Mengele that you mentioned earlier, or coming down to Rudolf Haas? Did you ever talk to them or have any experiences with Mengele or Haas?
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Rudolf Haas or Mengele?
Did you have any contact with the Commandant of Auschwitz, Rudolf Haas?
Never.
And Dr. Mengele?
Dr. Mengele used to come in and just inspect the sauna and see if he can collect. I saw him very much. There was an uprising actually in one of the crematoriums or one of the, I have the copy from the New York Times from way back when she grabbed the Scharführer's Schillinger, who was the worst bastard. Really, you had the wrong way. You think I was going to kill you. Schillinger, she killed him as she was getting undressed. Grabbed his gun. I have the whole story. You talk about a heroine. That was a heroine.
Sir?
Yes.
Having been in Auschwitz, as well as Dachau. And having had all the experiences there, not good ones to say the least, have you ever returned to either one of those two prison camps? And if you did you have, what kind of flashbacks did you have at that time of the memories there of when you were there? Was it a good experience or a bad experience if you were able to return?
Have you been back to Auschwitz, and was your experience?
I go back to Auschwitz quite frequently because the director of the museum, Professor Tsidinsky, made us acquaintance. He organized quite an operation. And they get me there as I have pictures over here of me singing. There were all kinds of heads of state, the memorial prayers, and I'm considered, as one of the very few specimens who are left who witnessed this. And I do that, it does not bother me anymore.
Spent time in Auschwitz and Dachau, and I was hoping maybe you might have known him or seen him. Can you talk about, the one story that I remember about him is that there was an altercation and they would feed you potato peeling soup, is that correct? Is that something that you ate?
I can't.
Did you have potato peeling soup?
Oh, sure.
Well, that's what they
Of
were.
course.
They were
We'd love a piece of potato peel.
Exactly. Well, you didn't get the potato, you got the peelings, and my father started an altercation, and the guard told him, the German guard told him, said, well, this is your meal, and he says, well, then you eat it, and he threw his food down and still did.
I have the record. I could say that if anyone knows any of the survivors, or has a family, or is anybody who was a part of that particular group, all you need is to give me their number. And everybody who was in Auschwitz had that number. If you give me the number, I will be able to tell you how many people came in on the transport, how many people were killed, and these are from the German archives. I have a book in Polish, never been translated, that gives me every single transport from the opening of the day that the camp started. How many were killed? It tells you exactly. This is taken from the German archive. I just surprised Professor Serby last time, 3 months ago, I was in Auschwitz giving a concert with my grandson accompanying me, and the Professor Tsidinsky gave me a copy that they found of an inventory. Listen to this one. An inventory, I think I have it here. In German, in March of 1943. By that time, it tells you how many kilograms of gold they took out from the transports. How much was it? 203.
273 kilograms.
Kilograms of gold. It's in the inventory, written in. That's what they got. It paid to kill people. That was the whole point.
Joe.
I have a question. With all of your experiences and all of your years of wisdom, one of the things I wonder, we hear, people study the Holocaust and all these monsters, but I would like to know your opinion. What do you think it would take? What do you think we should be teaching our people and our young people about preventing becoming monsters like this? Do you think there's something that should be universal education in humanity and how it should run?
Yes, I think Professor Serby will be able to answer that better than I, because that's my motto of life, and that's what I try to tell the kids when I talk to them.
As an educator, we were riding back from, I mentioned it before, about not having to pay to get out of the parking lot, which was a hilarious event to begin with. We were riding back to Krakow, and one of the other teachers, there was 3 teachers in the car, asked David, what should we teach our children? And without skipping a beat, he said, you need to teach your students 5 things. First, teach them honor. Second, teach them respect. Third, a sense of awe, which you have to explain even to high school students what that is. But they're getting that. 4, have a healthy fear. In other words, don't walk down a dark alley at 2 o'clock in the morning. Bad things can happen to you. And 5th, and most important, make this a better place than it was before you came here. If everybody on that planet did that, because we asked him, do you think another Holocaust or genocide is going to take place? He goes, of course there will be, because we have not done these 5 things. Believe it or not, I would write to my students one essay, which I told them was for no credit, and I ended up giving credit anyway. What's the most important thing that you've learned, with this unit? Almost to a student, even my college students, write that in their essay. That's the most important thing I can convey to them, which they would convey to us. One last question. Go.
Was your ability to speak all the different languages and your music ability, were those two of your secrets to endure and get through all the goings on in Auschwitz, your language and your music ability?
Absolutely, yes. If you are not something, didn't have something different than the majority, somewhere along the line, that played quite a trick. Otherwise, you'd be just swallowed out by the horror of the crowd. One did not go to Auschwitz to live. One went there to die a slow death, or an immediate death. Now you have to remember that this was a planned operation. The craziness of I don't even blame, I don't blame the German people. As a matter of fact, I think it's incredible. Today, they're the only 2 countries. Follow this one. This is unbelievable. The 2 countries where a Jew, a professing Jew who wears a kippah, a little bit of a, whatever you call it, a yarmulke or whatever, a kippah in Hebrew. There are 2 countries where you will not be bothered in Europe. Poland, which is unheard of, it used to be the opposite, and Germany. Belgium, France, Holland, England, any place, you're in trouble. So it's like a complete dichotomy. I have never seen it. But, as I said, I'm going to plug my book here. You've got the details of the whole system, of how it worked and how I managed. But the best part that I told you about Captain James L. Walker and Harry Wiener, unfortunately, my friend passed away, both of them passed away. You have to remember the majority of the boys were about 6, 7 years older than I. So they all took care of me, as evidenced by the fact that they introduced me. I had some job this last 2 months ago when I sang the national anthem, when he introduced me as Rabbi David was sitting, you couldn't pronounce his name. As little David, our little David. So I got up and I broke him up. I said, "You just demoted me. I am not a rabbi. Rabbi in Hebrew means teacher. I am a chazan, which means a visionary."